Hello, everybody. Welcome back. This is another Roma Press live stream. So we are back shortly after the previous one, which I think a lot of people were happy about. It seems like people were excited to be back to another live stream. So we discussed Paulo Dybala's season-ending injury, and today we have a whole new topic to get into. First of all, I wanted to thank, obviously, the people that are taking the time to tune in today, and obviously a big thank you to all of our patrons who are lovely people and who are crazy but make this possible. So if you would like to join our beloved patrons, you can always sign up. The link is in the description below. It's patreon.com/Roma Press, and really any contribution helps. So I wanted to welcome everybody to another live stream. I wanted to say hi to Vincent and Mazin, who are already back in the chat after Friday's session. Thank you so much, guys, for being here again. Um, I thought that today we would, we would make up for the fact that honestly, sometimes there's just not much going on during an international break that would require a podcast episode, and sometimes I guess a live stream is a good compromise because we can get a bit of input from you guys. So this is exciting, and today's live stream will mostly focus on the stuff that we've been hearing for several weeks now. We will be hearing more of it as the season winds to an end, because obviously Roma have yet to make their plan known as to who will be the next coach after Claudio Ranieri. So we are here today to dig in to that. We don't want to go and excavate all of the stuff that has been said about this topic, because there is a lot of it, and obviously there is plenty of rumors. But I wanted to zero in on one candidate who seems to be right now the leading figure, according to most media reports in Italy. So I'm here today to get a bit of opinions from you guys. If you have any uh, questions, any talking points that you would like me to cover, any comments, please always keep it civilized, but feel free to write it down in the chat. If you are rewatching it, if you're rewatching this live stream, make sure to enable the chat display so that you can see also the comments that I'm responding to, so that it makes sense and I don't seem like a madman just talking to himself. But this is the point of the live stream, is to get everybody engaged. So fire away, guys, because today we are going to be talking about Gian Piero Gasperini, as a possible successor to Ranieri. So that has been the main name linked to Roma in recent days. To my good friend Ju. Hello, Ju. Good to see you, man. Thank you for being here again. Hi, James 8. Kakazin says Roma should choose between Gasperini, Ancelotti, De Zerbi, or Motta, or should I choose? Pinaka, hi Pinaka. That Pinaka is a good question, which could be the starting point for this episode, because obviously Gasperini, guys, is a man who has been in charge of Atalanta since 2016. That's a long time, guys. That's 9 years in charge of a club that was battling against relegation, the club that had zero European football ambitions, and yet has been able to win a Europa League trophy. This is a man who doesn't have a pleasant reputation among fans, media, and me included. This is a man who is very demanding. This is a man who has been able to lead Atalanta to incredible results given their squad. He's been able to give new life to several players. He's been able to create a system where no matter who joins or leaves, the machine keeps on working. And Pinaka asks, what do you think is actually the vision of the Friedkins going forward with Roma? Well, I think that when we talk about Gasperini, we're talking about a coach who has to come into a setting where the vision is crystal clear, where the vision is you are in charge, you create the system. It may take time. You may need help with finding the good pieces, the diamonds in the rough, with taking chances, because there is a lot of taking chances with Atalanta. Atalanta have been taking chances on so many players, whether it's young players or older players who don't really have a big career to show for their age. He's been able to instill a work ethic that has made Atalanta a force to be reckoned with, not only in Italy but in Europe. So this is who we are talking about, guys. A very very divisive coach. I know this. I'm pretty sure that most of the people watching this live stream will not be too happy about the sort of person behind the coach that we're talking about. Most notably, Gasperini is someone who, well, first of all, he rejected Roma in 2019. Let's remember, before Paulo Fonseca is appointed, Roma go to Gasperini, who rejects them. Now, he had his reasons. Roma were coming off arguably the worst season in a long, long time, 2018, 2019. There was a whole mess behind an ownership that wasn't really there. So obviously the club was run by Guido Fienga at that time, basically. So there was not much that we could blame him for. Paulo Fonseca walked into a hellish situation, which Gasperini avoided. And then obviously Gasperini has always been a pain in the ass. Gasperini has been known to make comments, such as the comments in regards to Evan Dika's collapse last season, which made us really question his character, and that's obviously a valid criticism. So, um, so I think the foundation for even having us linked to a name like this has to be really solid. Because if Roma really do want someone like Gasperini, then they must meet him at a halfway point. They must know exactly that this is a guy who requires time, effort, yeah, and dedication, and sort of a clear understanding between everyone at the club. There can't be factions. In a club with Gasperini at the helm, there can't be factions. Everybody has to be on the coach's side. That's how it always worked. That's why Gasperini's early career was marked by that brief, short-lived, disastrous experience at Inter. That's why he was always been made fun of. That whenever he tried to push Atalanta to the top positions, it was always brought to his attention that, hey, you failed in an important club like Inter. Of course you're going to do well at Atalanta, since there is less pressure there. So we must understand that this is a coach who needs time, right? Atalanta were not firing on all cylinders right away, but it steadily improved over the years, obviously culminating in recent memory with them lifting the Europa League trophy, annihilating Bayer Leverkusen, delivering their only defeat all season long. So what are we even talking about here? Oh, Nino, good to see you, Nino. Thank you. I want to ask, do you do you want Gasperini? I don't know how to feel about it, especially because of how bitter he is. I really wish Gasperini would stop being linked with us, Amos says. He's not a Roma coach. He's a project guy. Roma don't do projects, nor do we express any semblance of patience for projects. Um, Gasperini will take a few years to start working. Guys, you're all correct in this assessment. I agree with you. Gasperini is a projects guy, and that's why I say that the vision that the Friedkins have for Roma will very much require the club, well, it will, if they really want to go for someone like Gasperini, they will need to exactly work on their understanding of what a vision is the vision short-term success, getting, getting the job done in one season, lifting a trophy, and boom, that's it? Or is it creating an environment that becomes fruitful over time, that allows exactly individuals to come in, leave, whatever, and yet the machine keeps on going, the results are being cranked out, the team is being able to competitive on a long-term basis? Now, exactly, these are two very different commitments, and the coaches that we've seen linked in the past are sort of contrary to that belief, right? Because if you're talking about Carlo Ancelotti, if you're talking about Massimiliano Allegri, you are talking about the opposite of someone like Gasperini. You're talking about coaches who need a well-equipped team in order to deliver the results you want within a set amount of time. Boom, that's it. And then, they get it out of the way, they leave in glory, or not so much, but mostly it's that. Is that the approach that the Friedkins want? Or do they want to go the other way? Do they want to reset and try to do what they tried to do with De Rossi, and yet they didn't commit to it, remember, because De Rossi extends his contract. There is this feeling that, hey, here's a young coach, he's going to lead the team over a number of years, he's going to create a sustainable environment for the team to thrive, to be competitive, but it will take time. But let's remember what the Friedkins do after 4 match days. Whether you like it or not, they committed to a decision which saw Daniele De Rossi sacked. Now, with someone like Gasperini, to expect results within the first 4 weeks is foolish. And even if you get results in the first 4 weeks of his tenure, that doesn't mean that you are heading toward a long-term future. There has to be really exactly like sort of a clear understanding of, as Amos says, what Roma want to do. Do they want to do a proper project, or do they want to sort of scratch any kind of patience? It's funny that you say Amos patience, because I feel like sort of it's not even about the club itself. Everybody's impatient. The media are impatient. The fans are impatient. I mean, even with De Rossi, people were mad. People were genuinely mad when we started off this season with a negative streak. When Roma dropped those points at Genoa, I did not see a lot of empathy and understanding for De Rossi, for giving him more time. Both media and fans were sort of aligned in the opinion that, hey, this sucks. This is no good. This is not what we signed up for. Hey, Andy, nice to see you back. Not sure how to feel about Gasperini, but more importantly, if I'm not mistaken, he's not well liked by the Roman fans in Rome. He could do good or very bad with Roma fans. Yeah. Drew says, I think Gasp is legit a world-class coach, but we can't fire him when the things get rough, which they will. He needs time to get the ball rolling. Absolutely. Yeah, that's again, that's sort of the foundation for this live stream is in which direction do we want to go. All right, this morning I published it on Roma Press. Corriere dello Sport, they released a report that Roma with Florent Ghisolfi and Claudio Ranieri personally reached out to Gasperini. They had a conversation with him. They even sort of reiterated that the club would be willing to absolutely back him in the construction of a team, whatever that means. This is what a newspaper says. Now, whether that really happens or not, whether it's just Claudio Ranieri texting Gasperini because I'm sure he has his number, or in fact talking to him on over the phone, or somewhere meeting him in the city or whatever. Well, we are talking about two club representatives almost sort of making a commitment to a coach of another team. Yet the same article obviously goes on to say that, hey, there is There is other candidates in that someone like Farioli from Ajax, or even Vincenzo Italiano, who's doing quite well at Bologna, despite all my criticism of him. But um, so Gasperini obviously is not the only name in the mix. Gasperini is the one name in the mix because, based off of Claudio Ranieri's comments, Roma wanted to find someone experienced in Serie A, Italian, with sort of a clear understanding of what it takes to succeed in Italy. If you take that into account, well, that I think that rules out someone like Farioli. It includes someone like Massimiliano Allegri. It includes someone like Maurizio Sarri. It includes a lot of names of these veteran coaches. Gasperini is someone like that, but Gasperini is different in profile because exactly Gasperini is someone whom you have to involve 100% in every aspect of what the club is doing. Gasperini is not a manager who comes in and demands, world-class talents. Gasperini comes in and wants clear, functional players that can be of use to him, right? And that he can work on. So, he's not looking for top talent. He's looking for players who can be useful to him, to his plans, to his machine, right? And so that's a huge commitment. That's a huge commitment, and it requires Roma, who have been, I'm not going to say a mess, okay? I'm not. I'm going to be more diplomatic, but they've been erratic, okay? Let's put it that way. They've been moody. Roma have been moody over the years. It seemed like with Mourinho being the Friedkin's first appointment, the club were exactly striving to get that first trophy out of the way and then move on to exactly more and more trophies, but always on a season to season basis, because again, sort of the understanding was, well, we have so many constraints by the financial fair play. We have to do this, we have to do that, and there's just enough time to plan the short-term future. But then they backpedaled because with the appointment of De Rossi, well, the club seemed to be of the mindset that someone can lead this team for many years to come. Someone can come in young and experienced, and yet they can bring results in the long term. Obviously, with De Rossi's sacking, the Roma took another turn, and then they opted for Claudio Ranieri's return because they thought, well, now we need someone who knows what he's doing, and he needs to keep us alive until the end of the season. And then what? That's the big question. That's the big question that no media outlet is able to explain. What next? And as someone who here points out, we are also obviously starting to see the first articles that mention the consequences of Roma potentially missing out on Champions League football. Again, Roma, this is going to be a tough year for Roma, as Florent Ghisolfi has said in his previous interviews. This is going to be a challenging summer transfer window. And obviously, if you fail once again to reach the overarching objective of reaching top four, which we always were aiming for, despite dropping so many points early in the season, well, there is a risk. There is a risk of having to exactly do what you had to do many years ago, before the Friedkins came in, and also with Thiago Pinto's huge help, because I want to make that clear. With Thiago Pinto's huge help, they were able to avoid selling the precious pieces. Well, now we're starting to see the names of guys like Evan Dika and Miles Viar, two players who have been doing very, very well this season. Evan Dika with the most minutes played in Serie A. Miles Viar obviously doesn't need any introduction. Two players who have drawn interest, who have caught the attention of several top clubs. That is a possibility. So again, that will dictate what Roma can do, what Roma could offer to even say someone like Massimiliano Allegri. Realistically, in what position will we find ourselves in? And I think that is why Roma are not making abundantly clear who is in the lead to take over at the end of the season, because the club themselves are trying to assess what are their chances of getting the necessary spotlight to grow, and obviously the necessary money to grow as a club in the coming years. So if there are, dialogues with various candidates, I think it's really superficial level stuff, because everybody will want to wait and see where Roma are after the next 9 Serie A games, right? Nobody would commit to Roma right now, not in the state that they're in, not based off of their first half of the season. It's this right now. Nobody's willing to put pen to paper and say, "Yeah, I'll do it. I'll do it. Come the summer, I'll do it. Whatever." Um, also, also because we are talking about Serie A. Serie A is not only competitive during the season, but in the off season as well. We have several teams that may also start looking at someone like Gasperini, a man who has made it known to the public that he's not really willing to continue with Atalanta, even though he still has 1 year on his contract. And Atalanta have made it known that they would not oppose him leaving. You have a lot of teams that are interested in him. Among them are Juve, who just sacked Thiago Motta, appointing Igor Tudor until the end of the season. And then they are expected, I think they are expected to part ways with him. They're probably going to look for someone who can do what Thiago Motta was supposed to do, kind of similar to what Roma tried to do with De Rossi, right? Bring in someone young, someone with cool ideas, and get him committed to a long-term project. Well, Juve, just like Roma, they gave up on that project. Then you have Milan, who have yet to commit on a long-term basis to Sergio Coensao. Then you have Napoli with Antonio Conte, who could leave if he gets into a scrap with De Laurentiis, if he fails to win the Scudetto or whatever happens behind the scenes at Napoli. Well, Antonio Conte could also leave. Napoli could look at Gasperini as a potential candidate. So there's a lot of things that we must take into account. But most of all, we must keep in mind that this is the 24th of March, and Roma are in no position to appoint someone, because nobody would be willing to take this chance. Someone may look at the roster and may say, "Huh, this is a pretty good team." But what can be the ambition beyond this season? And the ambition obviously is, as always, dictated by whether you play in Europe, whether you play in Champions League, whether you play in Europa League, or whether you play in Conference League, or whether you don't play in Europe at all. So let's see the comments. Let's turn to the comments. Mazin, I don't think managing players at Atalanta is the same as managing at Roma. Add to that the organizational structure and club identity. Well, I don't know. There is going to be obviously a lot of change this summer. I still think guys like Pellegrini, Cristante, we could see them leave. This is not too far fetched. There's going to be some restructuring, but also if you look at on paper, on the page, there is a lot of quality. There's a lot of players that suit the style, the requirements of someone like Gasperini. I mean, you look at Kone, you look at all these additions, that even the younger profiles that we brought in January, Gurna Duath and Salaheddin, the kind of mentality that Roma showed by signing someone like Baldanzi a year ago in January, of a club that wants to shift towards a younger squad, right? Wants to shift towards perhaps a bit of an experience, but hunger to learn, rather than players who are already too comfortable with themselves. Let's see. I don't think we can personally afford Ancelotti, but Andy, just in this scenario, how do you feel this current squad with few additions would handle Gasperini's tactics? Again, I think honestly, if you, for example, are able to keep Saelmakers, right? That's also another Gasperini type player, I think. Angelino, I mean, the pieces are there. We would have to reorganize a bit the defense. try and see what maybe in the attack we could obviously, well, I'm pretty sure that someone like Eldor Shomurov will move on. Let's see what happens with Dovbyk, whether he chooses to stay or not, depending on how he ends the year. But I do think that the foundation is strong for any coach. I mean, obviously, except for someone like Ancelotti, who would probably feel uncomfortable coming into a team that is this inexperienced, that and the pressure even for someone like Ancelotti, sort of when he went to Napoli, there was some pressure. I mean, it wasn't the pressure to win the Champions League, it was the pressure to do good in Italy again after all these years, do good with the squad that you have at your disposal, not the squad that you imagine on FIFA. And that's challenging. Someone like Gasperini doesn't tolerate egos because he's got a huge one, so he doesn't tolerate egos. Now, exactly, if you bring down the age of the team, there is certainly very few egos involved, especially if you move on from guys like Cristante, the sort of the locker room guys that we all know who they are. Then I don't think it would be a personnel problem. I think with Roma, as Amos pointed out earlier, it's sort of club intentions. What are the club intentions? That's the issue. That's the key issue that someone like Gasperini would think about, rather than just the names of the squad. Amos says the Friedkins will have to decide if they are to cater to the fans or if they're going to do an actual project. Yeah. Unfortunately, you can't do a Gasperini style thing and please the fans. We all want consistency, but we as supporters are our own worst enemies. You said it, Amos. And absolutely, the environment, media, etc. Also, yeah, matters. Yeah, you said it perfectly. It is like that, right? It is like that. Roma have done this sort of thing on several occasions. I remember, could it have been exactly the summer that we appointed Paulo Fonseca? Well, Roma have had this tendency to sort of try and please the fans, right? We remember Juan Iturbe, Save Iturbe. We remember Riccardi, who was untouchable for the fans because he was the number 10 in the Primavera. We couldn't touch him. And then he plays for Latina because he doesn't want to move from his neighborhood. And then we had Sinisa Mihailovic, who was linked to Roma, was very close to Roma, and the ownership backtracked from him because all of a sudden there was such an outburst. Roma have always tried to make these compromises. Very rarely have they worked. I think someone like Ranieri or even De Rossi, that was good. That was Roma finding a middle ground, right? And a fair middle ground. And I think that was awesome. That was awesome. That was the Friedkins reading the room, but also reading the moment. That's what it's about, really. It should, for Roma, I would say for Roma, it should already be clear what their ambitions are for the next years now. As opposed to a candidate for the coaching vacancy or a player who is in talks to sign with the club in the summer. Roma, as opposed to them, must know exactly what they want to do in the next years. Right now, this has to be crystal clear, regardless if we get to the Champions League or not. Obviously, ambitions change, financial capabilities change, but what are we talking about here? We're talking about a club building a structure to win, because too many times we've seen the Friedkins in those statements talk about winning trophy, always the trophy. And to the fans, that matters a lot. The fans have also been very much concerned about that, because when you drop out of Coppa Italia, the fans get pissed off because, hey, you're dropping out of yet another competition where you could potentially get a trophy. But for the club, above all, there has to be growth. I mean, too many times we have seen this growth be cut down. As soon as the seeds, the flowers start to sprout, Roma, they mow the lawn. And you can't do it forever, because you're just it's sort of, you got to trust you got to trust the process, but do it better than the Philadelphia 76ers. uh, let's see, if Pelestante leaves, we riot, right? Yeah, no, Drew, I think there it will be pretty divisive. I I think this will be a fiery summer. Considering the sort of the mood that Pellegrini is in, his what his agent was trying to do, recently, and also talking him up in the media, and we've heard all kinds of stories about him, about Cristante. Cristante was also supposedly so very close to leaving Roma in January. So um, from that point of view, I really do think that the backbone of the team will change this summer. This will be the summer when it happens. Let's see. Um, oh, Jeff. Thank you so much, Jeff. So good. So good to see my good friend Jeff. Ciao, Andy. Hope all is well hope all is well in Poland. Absolutely, and you're enjoying the familiar surroundings. Uh, I went to my first Fortiludo game last week. Amazing, no questions, just saying cheers. Thank you, Jeff, so much. I'm so glad to be in touch with some of our beloved patrons, and Jeff is a wonderful member. He's right now he's in my hometown of Bologna. So thank you, Jeff, so much. Why not get Thiago Motta, says CEO? I know he wasn't successful at Juventus, but he's great. He plays entertaining football. Well, let's see, because I think someone like Motta, just like someone like De Rossi, will need some time. It's a big shock, guys, when you get sacked from your first like major job. Not to dismiss what he did at Bologna, because it was unbelievable, but obviously the ambitions at Juventus were always going to be greater. I don't know if Motta or De Rossi will be interested in picking up a job in the summer. But again, this depends really on what's available. Because I'm not sure that many clubs will want to go to someone like Motta or De Rossi after their respective experiences. Someone like Gasperini is much more appealing, especially to the clubs that are trying to not only get top four on a regular basis, but also just really become good over a prolonged period of time. Because that's what, if we think about the consistency, what teams have been the most consistent, not only in Italy, in Europe, in these last 9 years? It's not Inter, it's not Milan, it's not Napoli, it's not Roma, it's not Juve. All these teams have had very high highs and very low lows. You're right. Even a team like Inter or Milan or Napoli, they go from winning the Scudetto to then completely crashing out. Obviously not on the scale that Napoli did after their Scudetto run, but still to a point where they didn't assert their dominance the way they were expected to. Atalanta were the most consistent side. They've been the most consistent side. They continue to be the most consistent side. They are always there. They always take you by surprise when you think, oh, there it comes. They're gonna crash out and burn. Finally, it finally happens. It never happens. Never has it happened in these 9 years for Atalanta to completely misfire. They've always given a reason, not only to their fans but everybody, to tune in and watch their games, whether it's in Europe or in Italy. That's the most impressive thing about Gasperini, and that's what I think a lot of teams are after. They want that. But exactly, just like in Roma's case, I don't think that someone like Milan or Napoli or Juve are willing to, or have been willing, at least until now, to commit to that patience, to the fact that, hey, okay, you're going to lose the next 7 games or whatever, because there have been times where Atalanta have been quite disappointing, or they would lose, they would win a game 6-0. Next match, they draw 2-2 against a smaller opponent. But they've always stuck by Gasperini. They've always believed in him, his ability to pick up the pieces and do something good with what he had at his disposal. And he's always exceeded expectations. That is what a lot of clubs are after, yet none of them have the courage to go after, right? So it's going to be a matter of who's got the guts to take a chance. Roma and Juve clearly did not have the guts to stick to what De Rossi and Motta were trying to do, what they represented, what they could potentially miss out on. Perhaps it is motivated. Perhaps this is a symptom of modern day football, where you miss out on your objectives. The financial losses are too great, to dismiss in favor of a coach who's going to require more time. No matter what one's thoughts on Gasperini, getting him far away from Bergamo must be seen as something to celebrate for our top 4 hopes. Yes, absolutely. It's very hard to imagine Atalanta without Gasperini. And there have been occasions where he's been tempted to leave. But he's always been there, and I wonder because for a while, obviously, they also had the amazing Giovanni Sartori, who's the sporting director of Bologna. Well, when he was there, it was clear that as long as he's there, he's also the architect behind this success. And so I'd be curious to see what Atalanta do if this work ethic that Gasperini has instilled in the DNA of the club will remain, or what's going to happen next. Let's see. I'm late to the party. Did somebody already bestem yet about Gasperini? No, not yet. You can go ahead, Viadri. If the fans support Gasperini like they did Mourinho, not gonna happen. I think that would be best case scenario. However, due to Roma's previous track records with Il Progetto, I just don't know anymore. No, but also Mourinho is one thing, guys. Mourinho is one thing, because Mourinho represented all of the success that Roma never had in their entire history. That's why, even though he was the coach of one of the most notorious rivals for Roma in 2010, obviously with Inter, Roma fans embraced him like their leader, because this guy signified everything that Roma fans wanted from their club. Gasperini, on the other hand, even though he's been hugely successful with Atalanta, he does not inspire camaraderie. He does not give you the sense of a guy that you'd love to have a beer with. Okay, Gasperini is your boss in a restaurant who's pinching the waitress's ass and making your life miserable. Okay, that's Gasperini. He's the guy who says go polish some cutlery with vinegar without any gloves and stand there for 7 hours. Okay, and then go home and no tips for you. That's Gasperini. That's Gasperini, but he's and for a lot of fans, that is very off-putting. He's not a nice guy. He doesn't give off the vibe of someone that will stand in the curva with the fans. And for Roma fans, that is very often a deal breaker. But again, it's sort of, is the club willing to be patient, and are the fans willing to be patient? Because, guys, we have not been patient with anybody. Even with Mourinho, those first seasons were shaky. Bodo Glimt shaky when Juve made that comeback 4-3. Things were shaky. It was not looking good even for the special one. Atalanta weaknesses have always been when they lose, they really lose. Yeah, I mean but that will always happen. God, I mean, even Lazio, they go from winning big with Baroni to losing 6-0 to Inter. Sure, it's a shame, it's bad, but do you believe that you can do better in the long term? Do you believe you can turn things around? You can avoid doing those mistakes a year from now, and then do even better 2 years from now? That's the mentality that Atalanta have had, and everybody else, every other top team in Italy, have not. So, um, Saul believes Juve will get first choice as always. Well, let's see, because I don't know how appealing Juve are really. Juve, I mean, again, put sort of the two teams on the pedestal. Juve and Roma are not too far apart in terms of how they look on paper, and also in terms of what they've done in recent years. Um, how likely is Gasperini to Roma? Thomas, that's the question for $1 million. It's nobody knows. Every day there is something else. But Gasperini right now, according to most reports, is the guy that Roma have already personally reached out to. I think there were also reports of Roma personally reaching out to Farioli, but those reports claim that this happened, I believe, in December, when Ranieri was just getting started, and those contacts with Farioli haven't picked up since. So Gasperini right now is sort of the steady name in every day in Italian media reports, and that's why today's live stream is sort of dedicated to him. I think something else that has always helped Gasperini, aside from Dr. Banksbo, hey, mind you, Dr. Banksbo hasn't been at Atalanta for the past 2 seasons, I believe, was his fantastic sporting directors. Do you think Ghisolfi could be one of those directors? I I do believe that any sporting director that works with someone like Gasperini, has to always be willing to include him in any plans. It cannot be that you just give him the first name off your personal list and you haven't consulted him, because then Gasperini is not happy. Gasperini has been able to show over the years, even this season. I mean, he's never been very, very happy with any transfer market, especially in recent years. I would say since Sartori left, Gasperini has not been happy with most of Atalanta's transfer moves. He's been complaining a lot, especially right after a transfer deadline. He'd say, "Oh well, we were still missing this player and that player, and this player is." Okay, even Zaniolo. I mean, he was not happy with Zaniolo. And yet, this is a man who, hate him as much as you want, but he's been always been able to. I mean, think about, guys, Zappacosta. Does anyone remember Davide Zappacosta at Roma, the guy who breaks his ACL in the warm-up to the Derby? Remember? He joins Roma, breaks his ACL, boom. Completely low on confidence at Chelsea, whatever. He goes to Atalanta. Gasperini revives him. And on paper, that's a bad player. Like, that's a player who hasn't been good in a number of years. He was good at Torino, goes to Chelsea, goes missing, goes to Roma, doesn't even play. And in Gasperini's hands, he becomes vital. He's still going strong. Zappacosta. And that's one example. There's so many of guys that were never meant to be as good as they have been or still are under Gasperini. And yet every year, I mean, I would even say someone like Martin Derun, a guy whom I really dislike. He's one of those players that if he's not on your team, you hate. He's good. He's very good in Italy because of Gasperini. Okay, you take him out of that context, you lose something. But with Gasperini, he has no reason to be as good as he is. Anthony Lovari, our good friend. Andy, I agree that something has to change with the future outlook of the club. There has to be a plan to stabilize the club so it stops becoming a revolving door of failure. Not even failure, Anthony. I would just say that it's sort of a revolving door of lack of commitment, indecision. Not even failure, because I would say maybe failure. The clearest episode of failure, okay, was Ivan Juric's spell. That's disaster. 12 games and out of the club. That's disastrous for anybody. But most of the time, it's been indecision. It's been a delayed response to a situation, or perhaps with De Rossi, it was a response that felt a bit too anticipated. Nino, God, the more you talk about him, the more I remember how much I dislike him as a person. Yeah, absolutely, Nino. That's the point. The fact that even Napoli could afford Ancelotti and we have to beg for Gasperini drives me completely mad. No, but listen, I don't think that's. I don't think why we have to beg for Gasperini. We're not begging for Gasperini. It doesn't work that way. Also, Ancelotti, mind you, Ancelotti. Let's remember where Ancelotti was at the time he signed for Napoli. Okay, um, Roma could afford Ancelotti. Roma afforded Mourinho, who was on a salary of about 9 million euros a year. Okay, Mourinho was the second most paid coach in Serie A. So let's, I don't, we're talking about Massimiliano Allegri, I believe, what 10, 12 million, something like that. Mourinho was right below him. So this is not a matter of whether Roma can or cannot afford. It's about what Roma want to do, like so many people said in the chat, what they want to do with the project. I don't think money is the issue. I think the ambition is the most vital aspect of this conversation. Roma are not begging for Gasperini, just like every other team will not be begging for Gasperini. They will be inquiring about him because he's made it known in interviews that that he doesn't want to be at Atalanta. And if you haven't seen it on our website today, I posted today. Gasperini was seen in public. He was attending an event, and he was asked about Roma, and he said, "Rome is a great place. Roma have an incredible fan base. For me, it's a great pride to have their interest. But right now, we're going day by day. It's difficult to predict the future. Roma is like the national team. Everybody wants it." Now, for Gasperini to say something like that, it means a conversation with Ranieri definitely took place. Like there is no doubt about that. Okay, and so that's, we're not, it always sounds like these things with football. It's, someone begged, someone is, oh my God, no, it's a coach is has made it publicly known that he's available. Atalanta have made it known. Percassi, the president, said that we're gonna part on good terms. We're not gonna stand in the way. So Roma are doing everything that every other club is doing. And I really don't think, I think with Ancelotti, the first thing about Ancelotti is this guy doesn't want to leave Real Madrid. He's said it so many times in every interview this year. He doesn't want to leave Real Madrid. He's comfortable. He's got world-class players. He's basically a Champions League contender every year. It's endless success for a guy who's just trying to get to an age where he can retire and claim he's the greatest of them all. So I don't think he's going to be looking to take a chance at this stage in his career on a club like Roma. Andy, off topic, but how do you feel about the Azzurri? Completely indifferent. Completely, just completely indifferent to Luciano Spalletti's Italy. I have been seeing some negativity towards his appointment. May I ask why? He seems like the perfect choice for Roma. Yeah, this, I can tell you why. It's always, we always see things in different dimensions depending on how tuned in we are into what goes on in the Roma reality on the spot or outside. Abroad, outside, Gasperini is probably not even considered a controversial figure. Gasperini is like, an attitude and how he comes off is a bit like Bill Belichick. Okay, we know. Okay, he's an asshole. Fine, we're gonna tolerate him. But when you're in it in Italy, someone like Gasperini has a completely different reputation. He's seen as just the most obnoxious, unsportsmanlike. When he said when Evan Dika collapsed last year, he said basically something to the effect of, "Well, It wasn't really serious. I mean, it was code yellow or whatever, so it wasn't, it wasn't life threatening. Why should we postpone a game like that? So a lot of fans are not happy with what he represents. Are not a lot of fans. They always in Rome. We always, the Italians, especially, regardless of the club, they always talk about appartenenza. Whether you belong to a specific setting, and in Rome especially, do you belong to this setting, to this culture? Gasperini, for many fans, is a big no-no. If we get Gasp, half of the team is going to leave, include Dybala, most likely because of his high intensity. I don't think you can move Dybala at this point. He just extended and he's out until next season. So I don't think Dybala is going anywhere, guys. Um, the fans will definitely protest if he gets elected as manager. Yeah, absolutely. Everybody wants it as a bit of a stretch. Logan, I think he just means, the prestige that comes with the national team. It's always there. Like, regardless of what the national team is doing at a certain moment in time, it's always there. There's a reason why someone like Luciano Spalletti, after winning the Scudetto with Napoli, committed himself to Italy rather than any other club, because Italy still holds a certain magic. I love Gasperini, says Thomas. He should be the next coach, but his pressing can't work with Dybala and Dovbyk. Dovbyk is so poor. Again, we'll see. We'll see. I think it's too early to say. I would argue that a majority of the squad is good, as in is good in the hands of someone like Gasperini. A lot of the team thrives of this sense of high intensity, sacrifice. Again, I'm thinking about Kone. I'm thinking about Salmakers. Even someone like Pizzilli could be really good with Gasperini, Angelino, obviously. So there is good material there, and Gasperini doesn't need big names. He just needs functional players. That's what I've always admired about Atalanta. I've always been jealous of that, because, man, these guys get the job done. They no matter who they sign, they get the job done. How many times have we been able to say that about Roma? Not enough. Who hates Gasperini? You or the other guy in Roma press? I always forget his name. The other guy's John. I think we both dislike him on a personal level. I think both of us admire him. We've made fun and we've made jokes about Bangsbo and sort of the medical stuff of Atalanta. We've worked miracles over the years, but yeah. What do you think about Sarri? Well, Sarri has been very unclear about it. He says he wants to, even today, he said he wants to have a project where he feels involved, and he's waiting for the right moment. Sarri could just be as controversial as Gasperini, since he just coached Lazio, and I don't know if Sarri right now has the juice, the fire that someone like Gasperini would certainly have. Gasperini is dying to prove himself in a different context. Absolutely, like, no questions. If Gasperini is looking to leave Atalanta, it's because he knows that he's at an age, he's at a stage in his career where he's won the Europa League trophy with Atalanta. He's got them consistently in Europe. He's got to take the next step. He's got to do it. After 9 years, it's time. Obviously, top four is always the priority. I would like Roma to stabilize themselves in the league first, especially with Coppa Italia, then worry about Champions League, says Nino. Would a Gasperini arrival keep Cristante, given he was an Atalanta player? I don't know. I think Cristante has different priorities. Cristante is probably also looking to sort of change scenery, and I understand him. I understand, because he doesn't have the best rep in Rome, yeah, probably new motivation elsewhere. I would assume that even Gasperini's arrival would not change plans. I don't envision Cristante extending his contract with Roma, and I do not envision Roma extending his contract, potentially paying him the same amount that they're paying him now. I think that sort of goes against their policy right now. Gasperini is Voldemort towards Roma. He's the name, and that shall not be said. Of what I heard, Gasperini is training very intense players, throwing up and all that. Don't think some Roma players would keep up. Again, guys, those are myths, okay? Davide Zappacosta is an excellent player under Gasperini. You can't tell me that Davide Zappacosta is a high-intensity player. No way. So, there is a lot there's a lot of opinions going around about this subject. It's not going to get easier with the passing of time. There's going to be more and more rumors, but I do think that Roma are starting to zero in on a select number of candidates. Yeah, someone's like Jackie says that the Friedkins could pull off a surprise like they did with Mourinho, and bring me Klopp. That's not. Yeah, no, no. Klopp, I think he's done. He's done with the sport. What the reaction do you envision at the Olimpico when Zaniolo returns to the pitch with Fiorentina? I hope the worst. I hope for the worst. I think, guys, we are going to end the live stream here because I think that sort of, we've covered most bases with this candidate. Gasperini is a name that people feel strongly about. He's also a very competent coach. He's a competent coach who is in need of a new adventure, of a new challenge. After 9 years at Atalanta, he's proven himself with Atalanta repeatedly over the years. And I do believe that Roma have his name high on their list. It will remain to be seen whether Roma want to go in a into a new long-term project, because this would be sort of their second long-term project after the first one with Daniele De Rossi failed. And it will be interesting what all the other candidates are thinking of Roma as Roma approach these next 9 games, because again, a lot will depend. Almost everything will depend on these nine games that are left in the Serie A campaign. In the meantime, guys, if you haven't subscribed to this channel, please do so. You can put on the bell so you know whenever I go live or whenever we drop a new video of the podcast. You can also just give a like to this video so that more people see it after the live stream has ended. And if you like what we do at Roma Press, please consider becoming a patron at patreon.com/Roma Press. I want to thank everybody again for joining me. I appreciate it. Thank you, Nino. Thank you, Drew. Thank you, everybody that has tuned in. Thank you to our patrons who make this show possible. I appreciate the participation in these live streams. It's always nice to interact with you guys. So perhaps I will see you soon in the next days, depending on what news are being cooked in Italian media. So thank you so much. Have a great rest of the day. And as always, guys, Forza Roma.